we got ourselves an interesting one, man. One of the greats of this anime reaction sphere that we exist in has made some videos, apparently some commentary stuff. And the topic of this is anime in a bad place currently, from YaBoyRoshi. Is anime in a bad place? Well, honestly, we know about like the production issues that's always, fucking stuff up, right? Ridiculous schedules and corporate suits always, pocketing money, and the animators just basically not even being able to see their family to pump stuff out. We know about that. We also know about garbage ass animations like Debate or even Blue Lock to an extent. I know that the finale, quote unquote, redeemed it by having a recency bias and going a Sakuga moment, but there's so many garbage adaptations and a lot of, pretty much like quick cash grabs being made and IPs being ruined, right? And I'm sure there's even way more problems that exist beyond that, but let's see what YaBoyRoshi has to say about this.
Let me ask y'all a question. Do you think that anime is currently in a bad place? Now, before you freak out, listen.
The average YouTube commenter at display. How dare you talk about anime like this?
Now, before you freak out,
yeah, that's about right.
Listen.
I'm listening.
I understand that anime as a whole is more popular than it's ever been.
Yeah.
However, that popularity has been built and sustained on IP that are now 10, 20, 30 years old.
Let him cook. Popular animes that exist in IPs that's locked away, that's dinosaur ones, right? I mean, One Piece is still really hard. Bleach came back to kind of, hit one big one off. We got some new ones coming out with Demon Slayer and, Jujutsu Kaisen and even MH and stuff like that. But if you really think about it, the people that owns all this is like what? Notorious producers and big corpos like Karakawa, etc.
Anytime there's a popular anime conversation going on, it's usually pertaining to your usual suspects. Your Naruto, your Bleach, your One Piece.
The crayon eaters, right? And there's nothing wrong with being a crayon eater. I think that crayon eaters, the average person who is, compelled by battle shonen. Why? Because if you think about, again, the biggest demographic of anime watchers, there's probably going to be young teenage boys, right? There's more of them than, let's say, the 30-year-old salaryman who's too busy, working away and slaving away to come home and take care of kids. So if you think about the demographic at play again, the animes that really appeal to the biggest market are going to be Battle Shonen. That's why Battle Shonen has the biggest viewership, not in terms of just online streaming platforms, but even YouTube reactions. You can see the numbers, man.
Your Dragon Ball, your Hunter x Hunter, you guys know the drill.
Yeah.
But what about the newer IP?
Such
I think
as?
that the popularity of anime has in a way backfired and led to a congested market, and the products become super diluted.
Congested market and is diluted. In terms of the isekai genre that we're so aware of, that is absolutely the case, right? There is just an abundant amount of garbage isekais being pumped out on a seasonal basis. Every season there's like maybe even like up to double digits isekais, or not even just isekais, but like fantasy shows, banished from the party type of shows, guild, adventure, basically an anime that kind of exists in that isekai medium. And usually they are just slop. They're garbage because at the end of the day, producers think that, this is a familiar enough setting that, and the story will carry it. Our domestic audience loves eating this shit up. And that's why even anime is like Debate right now, if you're not aware, even though it's got garbage production and everyone's making fun of it, over in Japan, it does really well. There are plenty of animes, even Nutmaster from last season, Fruit Master, or, Banished from the party, but the healer is actually OP or whatever. There's like these garbage ass production that I would rate like 5 to 6 out of 10 that appeals to them because the story carries hard and because of Japan always pandering towards the domestic audience. And I think they should, right? I mean, it depends on their goals. They clearly don't really care that much about international audience, right? They care most about what their locals care about. And because the isekai and those kind of isekai-esque stories are so favorable to their local audience, they will keep pumping this shit out as like a quick money grab.
I mean, we see it every day. We have all these animes with shitty production schedules, bad directing, bad animation, years between seasons. How is it possible to build up a fan base when you have all of these issues? And without the opportunity.
And I think that like building a sense of community and having them talk about those animes definitely does get animes go way more mainstream, right? Absolutely it does. The current argument is like, bro, we have so much like issues of scheduling and lack of talent and even like talent bleeding out. Like people, and specifically the animators, right? Like I think there was like a call to action of people need to stop just being onboarded without doing like the fundamentals, right? A lot of people just immediately get thrown into the trenches because of the lack of talent pool, because it's not that much. It's not like, who wants to really be an animator at the end of the day? I think it's a passion field that a lot of people get taken advantage of and get paid fucking nothing, and people are becoming more aware of it. And because of this and, you know, shitty work situations, you have like a bottleneck of pool of people who actually want to do this shit, and then that further escalates into like people not getting trained up and then having, you know, bad practices, and then which further, you know, just causes more of this cycle of bad shit happening, right? It's, the more I think about the current anime industry, it just feels like a bunch of corporate suits again, doing a quick cash grab, not really fostering a long-lasting community, right? There's just always, boom, done, next, what's the next big thing? All right, let's just cover that, boom, next.
Continue to build a proper fan base, how can any of these anime bring the genre to newer and greater heights? Is it just going to be Demon Slayer and Jujutsu Kaisen, which are already on their way out?
You know what? Wouldn't it be nice if other shows that wasn't just Battle Shonen could appeal to that mainstream audience, right? Like, it is absolutely a fact that Demon Slayer has just opened the floodgates ever since 2020 with the lockdown. It was the perfect time and the opportunity. It's also a really hyped show, right? And a lot of new people came in, and there's a new tourists coming in. And I think that anime has become a lot more mainstream because of that. And ever since then, you can also see, and we talked about this in the Crunchyroll Anime Awards, of different shows that keeps winning. And what are those different shows? It's pretty much the same genre, like Jujutsu Kaisen, Attack on Titan. Yeah, I know that Attack on Titan has deep writing, but I'm trying to say is, these are action-based hype shows that, again, keeps pandering to that specific demographic of people because it's the most accessible. Dandadan and Freeren, I think, are really nice because I feel like they are a bit different than those Unga Bunga Battle Shonens. Absolutely, there is Unga Bunga Battle Shonen elements to it, but it's not the only case, so that's kind of nice. But then you have solo leveling and stuff like that too, right? So in a reality, like, imagine a reality where like rom-coms or slice of life or, you know, any of the other genres. Like, for example, I know that a lot of people don't even know like animes like this exist. If we look at just like AniChart and kind of look at this summer, spring 2025, I think that there are so many animes that's underlooked. For example, like even Kurun Generic Romance. I guarantee you the average people that watches the Crayon Eater shows like Jujutsu Kaisen or Demon Slayer would never give an anime like this a chance. And imagine there was a reality where people were able to watch and appreciate something like this. And I think that this anime is actually a hidden killer, bro. I think it's so good. Even other ones such as, let's say, where is this? Ninkoro, right? Whereas Ninja and Assassin Under One Roof. I think Studio Shaft is absolutely killing it with this dark slice of life, cute girls doing fucked up things. But these will never appeal to that mainstream audience. So what is the issue then? Are we trying to reprogram people's brains to be able to make them appreciate more shows like different genres? Or is our goal to procure more mainstream appealing, you know, shows like Jujutsu Kaisen and Demon Slayer? I hear that Kagurabachi is, it's on its way, and we'll see what kind of happens with that.
What's next? Am I tripping? Is there something that I'm not seeing? Is it just nostalgia? Let me know. Do you agree or disagree?
I'm kind of confused on what your boy Roshi's like question really is, because is anime in a bad place currently? I think that yes and no. Obviously, there's going to be pros and cons. I think it's better to kind of like look at what's been happening throughout the last decade and compare it with like this decade to see what the issues are. I think the main issues definitely are like the schedulings and the production issues that comes from this Japanese corporate structure that's really hard to change. If we're talking then about like popular shows that's exiting, such as Demon Slayer and JJK, and they are exiting, right? Demon Slayer only has that Infinity Castle movie left, and then that's pretty much it. I'm sure they're gonna milk the shit out of that. I'm hoping that the movies will be turned into anime seasons, right? But that'd be really nice. And then there's JJK, which got the Culling Games, and I don't know how many more seasons it really has left, but once those are done, right? I guess it's your boy Roshi saying, what is gonna replace those, right? I mean, I'm sure newer popular battle shonen stuff will come to rise, but if not, I think that having other type of shows be appealing, right, would be really nice. Like the inceptions of fantasy shows like Dungeon Meshi or Freeren being appealing to a bigger audience, I think is pretty cool, right? Let's read some of the comments. Roshi and his commentary. This is, yeah, I like the commentary stuff. All very valid points, but personally, I feel like hidden problem is that a lot of the time, producers are chasing trends. Look at the isekai genre that exploded over the years. While I love them, I feel like it doesn't allow new and fresh stuff to emerge. And yeah, there is this like issue that happens with the success of specific things and a lot of people trying to copy that success. For example, you've seen like the whole idea of the Mr. Beastification of content, right? I don't know if you know what I'm really talking about, but basically there's a guy named Mr. Beast and he makes great content, right? Big content, insane content. And everyone tries to kind of copy his style and the thumbnail and stuff like that. This is one example that I'm trying to show you in how like once something popular gets made, people will then try to copy that in order to give a sense of familiarity, and it'll do a little bit of a tweak, right? And that kind of feedback loop will obviously not encourage diversity. It won't encourage, you know, new innovative things, because why try doing something new when you have a guaranteed formula and people love that shit over and over again? There is a fundamental problem with that. I've come to love Konosuba, but I can never get quite over the trauma of just having died. Are you saying that you can't watch anime because the whole isekai part in the beginning is too much for you, Mr. Dustin_Frost? That's some pussy ass fucking... By the way, Konosuba is a show where the guy literally pissed himself and shocked himself to death. Kazuma. Anyways, nah, you spitting for real. The anime community as a whole has grown so much to the point I feel like studios are putting out whatever for the simple fact that someone is gonna watch it. Short-term gains at the cost of longevity throughout quality. Well, I think that if you look from the perspective of these corporate suits and these business direction people, not the animators, but the people who actually greenlight shows and stuff like that, obviously the money is what matters the most. And I think I've talked about this at length about, look at Freerun. Look at the success of Freerun and how much, you know, Freerun's success is benefiting the anime community, right? Rather than pumping out like 17 garbage isekais per season, if a studio simply invested their time and resources into one single show like Freerun and then had a payoff that is long lasting, wouldn't that make you more money at the end of the day? Well, here's the thing. That idea might make sense if the success is guaranteed. Just because you take a long time and put care into a specific anime doesn't mean that it's going to pay off in the long run. These corporations are all like the fact that like these committees, right? If you don't know, basically if you look at an anime such as, let's say, MHA Vigilantes, you'll look at the producer staff and you'll see that what the fuck is going on here? Do you guys know what this actually means? Well, obviously Bones Film is the studio that's animating this, but Toho, Yomiuri TV, Bones, Shueisha, Dentsu, SME, Movic, these are all different corporate entities that pool their resources together such that they can get away without going bankrupt, right? This is like a safeguard put in place because, listen, making anime takes a lot of money. And if it doesn't do well, you go bankrupt, then you're fucked. That's why this kind of system exists in the first place. So understanding that concept, if we come over here, you'll realize not every studio wants to invest their time and resources into one single project because that's not a guarantee that it's going to return on investment. If that shit bombs after spending like fucking 5 years into making something and you do bad, you're done. So if you think about the incentives, these corporate structures, right? They're incentivized to do cheap cash grabs. Rather than try to do one big thing, let's just kind of do a couple mid things. And they've done the math and they realize, listen, it's not going to be a culture shifting norm, like a anime that we're making, but it's good enough and we can farm these little guys and they can make money like that. That's how businesses operate. So I want you to understand that, like, yeah, in an ideal world, every show becomes a free rent. They get ample time and investment put into it and it gets such a big, wide exposure and great. But that's not reality. And that's why these businesses, these corporations, these producers, you know, are following this trend, man. Nah, you're right. It's also an oversaturation of the same stuff we've been getting over and over again with the drop in quality. Yeah, I'd argue that again, the whole familiarity, right? The whole like isekai being such a familiar concept. Oh man, loser gets a second chance at, in a different world, and he gets all the bitches. Usually there's like an elf slave that just becomes part of the harem. He gets OP powers and he kills a demon lord and blah blah blah, right? How many times have you seen anime like that? And because it's popular, because it's familiar, people will keep pumping that shit out. I mean, in fact, there is an entire platform in Japan where they procure shows like this. I forgot the exact name of it, but basically your favorite shows, like, even, I'm not sure if Mushoku Tensei and ReZero from there, but there is a platform where it is like free for all. Everybody can just post their isekai web novel stuffs onto this platform, and if it gets enough traction, then it'll be made into an anime. In fact, the whole reason why isekai shows, like I got reincarnated into a slime, I got reincarnated as a vending machine. You see how ridiculous these titles are? This is a meta. This is a meta. Yeah, Naro Web, right? I think that if we... Naro Web. This is it, right? This is the Japanese platform where all of these Overlord, Konosuba, all these familiar, isekai shows that you're aware of comes from there. And they obviously all follow some sort of meta. They're meta chasing. And when you're meta chasing, there is no longer innovation because it's comfortable. And in an industry where people don't want to go bankrupt, why would you risk doing something new when you know that the existing formula will work? And then there comes, then that kind of like, then what do we do from there on, right? Now that we have acknowledged that this is the reality and this is why corporations are opting for this type of strategy, what can we do to change the system? Well, at the end of the day, it's just simple as the bottom line, right? Like, why would they go out and make different animes if they know that there's a risk and most likely people won't fuck with it? Unless you have more shows like Freerun, breaking the norm and being able to reach a different type of audience, right? I think that fantasy animes are quite heavily overlooked, at least that type of fantasy anime in Freerun. If we then could give more positive signs to the producers that, damn, these type of animes, not your regular battle shonens, but different genre of animes are appealing, will they then follow that trend more and more? It just feels like at the end of the day, it's a really Japanese corporate structure problem and how there isn't safety nets to allow them to do something creative. And at the end of the day, they're kind of fucked. And at the end of the day, like, there doesn't need to be a solution, right? I think a lot of people try to be a bit too idealistic and trying to figure out what's perfect, but reality itself is not perfect. We are all just trying to make the best of what we have, and we just gotta have a working solution. Honestly, there's an anime renaissance happening, but more so in the fantasy genre. Like what I said, right? Freerun, Dungeon Meshi, and Witch Hat, Atelier, right? These animes are getting traction because they give a fresh air, unlike the oversaturation of isekai and fanservice-driven animation. It's actually really funny because a breath of fresh air for Freerun, Dungeon Meshi, and Witch Hat's, like, it's the same environment, right? Now, the storytelling is different, right? I think there is a fundamental difference in an isekai story and like a native isekai story, right? What do I mean by native isekai? Well, if you really think about what an isekai show is, it's like a medieval European setting with adventures and guilds and shit, right? It just happens that an isekai has a dude from Japan, just like living through it, while shows like Freerun, Dungeon Meshi, it just doesn't have that like perspective. When Vinland Saga comes back, the world will be at peace again. I don't know about that. There's also people who just want to call everything that comes out mid when it's popular. People like that, people like what they like, and anime don't gotta be 300 IQ plus to be good. Again, the whole idea of like Crayon Eater shows like Solo Leveling versus highly big brain shows. Like, what's a really big brain show that we've been watching recently? I feel like Apothecary Diaries is pretty big brain, right? But to speak on your point, yeah, there's a bit of oversaturation problem in the industry. Anime being more popular than it's ever been is sort of like a double-edged sword. Yeah, because the reason that anime is being more popular than ever is because of new people coming in this specific demographic that enjoys battle shonen, unga bunga battle shonen, right? And in order to appease that audience and keep the industry going, you're gonna have more of the same shit going over again. You see what I'm saying? I think what you're seeing is One Piece is the last remaining show that airs every week. Everything else just feels like it comes and goes. I don't think that the average anime quality has gotten that much better or that much worse. I feel like the common sentiment is that the quality is getting worse intentionally because studios are becoming aware that they can get away with having PowerPoint presentations as long as the story carries. That's the trend that I've been seeing. And I think Blue Lock Season 2 is like the perfect example of this, where they are literally just giving you garbage PowerPoint presentations, and they just showed up for moments that only mattered a couple times, and people have a genuinely like decent impression of it near the end because of how well the finale episode just like sparked an interest in people's hearts for Blue Lock. But then again, it's just like I told you, this is the meta. This sets such a bad precedent where producers are now realizing, these monkeys will just eat this shit up, We straight up don't even have to show up for homeworks. We don't have to do, show up for lectures, labs. We can skip all that. We can simply show up for the final exam, deliver something good enough, and people will just eat it up, right? And because these corporate suits are realizing this pattern of behavior, I think you're going to get more animes where they're going to try less while getting the most out of it. And again, from an incentive point of businesses trying to make sure that the bottom line is covered, it's smart. Why put in more resources to give more animation when the outcome may not that be significantly different? All they have to do is just give you PowerPoint cuts. You don't even see the fights happening. I think Debate right now is a perfect example of that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there's this anime here called The Beginning After the End, and a lot of people meme about it, saying this is the end before the beginning. This is an isekai show that is supposed to rival that of Mushoku Tensei in terms of the source material, but the anime is a fucking garbage bullshit show. And Turtle Me got scammed, but he also made a mistake, right? And Studio 8cats, Crunchyroll, Tapas, which is the platform where this webcomic gets posted, they fucking set this guy up and he didn't do his due diligence, and now this anime is just being dunked on like it is Blue Lock Season 2 all over again. But the thing is, in Japan, this show does really well, right? Debate. Let's look at this again. Debate, Japan ratings. These are just a fact. And why is that? Because Japan doesn't really seem to care that much about production value in these type of shows. They are very comfortable and cozy with the isekai story that's been delivered that's so familiar to them, and they keep eating this shit up. So why would Japanese corporations even bother trying harder when they can put in the least amount of work and still get the most out of it, right? So at the end of the day, what do you do with situations like this? There is no answer. Are you supposed to brainwash the people watching this and somehow make the local demographic, Japanese demographic, to actually care about production value in isekai shows? How do you do that? That's impossible, right? I don't have an answer. I'm just proposing questions and making you think about what the reality is. And sometimes there doesn't need to be a solution. I just want people to be aware that these things are happening. Overproduction of titles is definitely an issue, and the increasing reliance on making anime only out of things with pre-built fan bases also lead to less opportunities for anime original works. I think that pre-built fan bases obviously are going to have more of positive signals for anime to do well, right? Because if you don't have like an actual built audience, then it's hard to get that shit popping off. I think a big reason why Solo Leveling appealed to so many people, other than the fact that it's obviously a simple hype aura farming show that hits the bigger demographic, is that there was a big international fandom, hyped up for the show. Then there are anime-only projects that usually just kind of fail because no one even knows about it and the marketing is garbage. There's very rarely does an anime-only project as well, right? Anime original series not films, deserves to come from more than just Shinichiro Watanabe and Studio Trigger. Taking risks on non-adaptive works is how we can get classics like Wolf's Rain, Division of Escaflowne, and Neon Genesis Evangelion, Yuri on Ice, and etc. But will these shows ever appeal to the Crayon Eaters, the average fan audience? I just don't think so, right? And if you really think about it again, why would a business ever take these kind of risks? It's a business at the end of the day, right? I absolutely would want a greater taste profile of different animes. But to think that these studios would take risks, random risks like this, without having some sort of surefire guarantee that it's going to get some sort of return on investment, I just don't see it happening. Also, the conditions of the industry needs to be better so animation veterans can cultivate talent and skill amongst younger generation of animators. This is a talking point that I mentioned before, right? Where I told you that there is such a shortage of talent as people are starting to realize that the anime industry is just built on passion and basically they just get treated like slaves and you don't make any fucking money. Guess what? How much the average Blue Lock animator gets paid per month? Season 2, we saw the interviews, right? Martin, I think, talked about how the average salary for Blue Lock Season 2 per month was $32 USD. Bro, you can make more than that working a minimum wage job, putting fries in the bag. So again, it just doesn't make sense why people would ever even want to do this. And because of this fucking shitty work system and the culture that allows it, you also have people just, again, being thrown into the trenches without having the fundamentals done. And there is like loss of skill, right? Knowledge bleed. You don't have mentorships and, you know, foundations and fundamentals being properly trained. It's just a bunch of people getting onboarded onto a project, onto the next one we go. And this is a very, it's not a good culture if you want to like make this whole ecosystem flourish, right? We're basically just putting band-aids on this dam that is just poking water and it's just all coming out. I agree with all those points, but also I like to add that the anime is being overworked and underpaid is also delaying episodes and putting shows in hiatus. And again, you can't change this, right? There's literally nothing you can do in, like, how are you ever going to change Japanese corporate structure? You can't. I feel like these are I don't want to sound like a doomer, but do you think it's realistic that like somehow, some way that the Japanese, you know, work-life balance, and this isn't even like an anime industry specific thing, this is a Japanese work-life balance culture issue, right? Where, dude, this shit is so fucked due to the way that things have been forever and due to the society that they live in, where you will never have good work-life balance or good scheduling. It's just a bunch of greedy motherfuckers trying to milk dry. They're literally like milking blood off of a rock right now. There's nothing to even happen, right? Kind of agree, but I try to stay optimistic on the new animes, right? Just need some time to build up a similar amount of hype to animes like AOT or Naruto. First one that comes to right off the mind are Dandadan, Villain Saga, and Apothecary Diaries. Even Apothecary Diaries, I feel like doesn't have that kind of reach. I feel like Chinese animes, donghwas, may encourage competition and make Japanese animes be better. I mean, at the end of the day, if you think about this as just pure business and capitalism, when you have other competitors coming into the game and impressing the audience, such as 2B Hero X, right? I think 2B Hero X is a fantastic example of such an amazing Chinese anime that has shown up out of nowhere. And this is also anime original. You can see that there is such love, passion, and care put into this project. And I don't know, I feel like if you ever want corporations to do better, you need to have other competitors to come into the game and let them be scared that like, listen, we're here to play and we're going to give a great product and you need to keep up with this now, right? And other than that, I just don't see any change really happening in the industry. Now we can keep talking and yapping over and over again, but this is going to turn into a 1-hour video. So that's pretty much it. At the end of the day, I think that there's obviously a lot to be desired from the anime industry, but a lot of the changes that we want are very idealistic, and a lot of people have an ignorant perspective on how business, specifically in the Japanese animation industry, works. Once you understand how things works and how the incentives line up to basically regurgitate existing, you know, themes and why innovation seems to be dead, you'll realize that, I kind of see why they're doing this, and there may not be a good enough solution at the end of the day. At the end of the day, though, I feel like these kind of things and dooming about it is pointless. Just want people to be aware of how things work and raise some questions and make people's brains start moving around. Thank you, your boy Roshi. Here is a link to the video. Bang, 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 bang. Go give it a like. Check out their channel for more anime stuff like this, and I'll see you next time.